The alien jungle was quiet, too quiet. The night air was heavy with mist, and strange glowing plants lit the ground with a faint green light. Somewhere far away, an animal called out, but its voice was low and harmless. Then, without warning, a scream tore through the silence. Ryan stopped in his tracks. His boots sank slightly into the wet ground, but he didn't notice. His heart jumped. The scream was sharp, full of fear, and unlike anything he had heard before. It wasn't human, the tone was strange, almost musical, but the pain in it was clear. He turned his head, trying to hear again. The jungle was still. Only the sound of water dripping from the tall, twisted trees reached his ears. Then it came again, the same scream, only closer this time. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. He had been traveling alone for days, mapping the edge of this unexplored forest on a distant alien world. He thought he was alone here, but now he knew someone, or something was in trouble. He moved forward quietly, his hand resting on the grip of his rifle. Every step was careful. The ground was uneven, covered in roots as thick as his arm. Strange flying insects buzzed past his face, their wings glowing like tiny sparks. The scream came again, and Ryan quickened his pace. He pushed through hanging vines and thorny bushes, following the sound. His boots splashed into a shallow stream, the cold water biting at his ankles. On the other side, the ground rose slightly, and he could see a faint orange glow through the trees. A fire. Ryan crouched low and crept closer, his eyes fixed on the light ahead. The smell of smoke reached his nose, but there was another smell too, a heavy, burning scent that made his stomach twist. He moved behind a wide tree trunk and looked around it. What he saw made his blood run cold. A large fire burned in the middle of a clearing. Around it stood tall, muscular alien figures, their skin dark and patterned with scars. Each one held a crude weapon, bone spears, stone axes, and sharp knives. Their faces were fierce, with eyes that glowed faintly in the firelight. In the center of the fire, above the flames, was a metal spit, and tied to it, wrists and ankles bound, was a young alien girl. Her skin was a pale silver, reflecting the firelight like polished metal. Her eyes were wide with terror, her mouth gagged but still trying to scream. She struggled weakly against the ropes, her body trembling from the heat. The tribal aliens chanted in deep voices, their rhythm slow and steady. One of them poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks into the air. Another leaned closer to the girl, sniffing the air as if smelling food. Ryan's hand tightened on his rifle. His breathing slowed. There were at least 15 of them, maybe more in the shadows. If he stepped out now, they would tear him apart. But he couldn't just leave her there. Ryan stayed hidden behind the thick tree trunk, his eyes locked on the scene before him. The fire crackled loudly, the shadows of the tribal aliens dancing across the jungle floor. Their chanting grew deeper, almost like the beating of a war drum, and each note made Ryan's stomach tighten. The young alien girl was still tied over the flames. Her silver skin was shining with sweat, and her weak movements showed she was close to giving up. The ropes around her wrists had already burned black in some places, but they still held tight. One of the tribesmen stepped forward. He was taller than the others, his shoulders broad, his chest covered in strange white paint. Across his back was a necklace made of sharp teeth, and in his hand he held a long bone knife. He raised it toward the sky and shouted something in a language Ryan didn't understand. The rest of the tribe roared in answer, their voices echoing through the jungle. Some banged their weapons against their chests, others stomped the ground with heavy feet. The girl closed her eyes, her body shaking. Ryan could tell she knew what was coming. Ryan's fingers itched to pull the trigger, but his mind kept warning him. Too many targets. If he fired now, they would rush him in seconds. He needed a way to break their focus, something to give him just enough time to reach her. The tall leader began to walk slowly around the fire, dragging the bone knife along the ground. Sparks of dirt kicked up in his path. The other warriors closed in behind him, forming a circle around the flames. Ryan's heart was pounding now. His training told him to wait for the right moment, But every second he waited was another second she was in danger. His eyes darted around the clearing, searching for anything he could use. He noticed a cluster of thick vines hanging from a tree branch just above the fire pit. They looked strong enough to hold weight, but also ready to fall if cut. An idea began to form in his mind. The leader had stopped directly in front of the girl. He reached out and touched her cheek with the back of his hand, almost gently, but there was nothing kind in his eyes. He was smelling her again, like an animal testing its meal before eating. Ryan's grip on his rifle tightened. He could hear the girl's muffled whimper, see her eyes darting desperately toward the dark jungle, toward him. The chanting became faster now, the tribe stamping their feet in rhythm. The leader raised the knife high above his head. Ryan's muscles tensed. The moment was coming. Ryan knew he had only seconds before the blade came down. His heartbeat was loud in his ears, but his mind was clear. He had to move, and he had to make it count. Slowly, he slid his rifle over his shoulder and reached into a pouch on his belt. His fingers closed around a small metal cylinder, a flash charge. It wasn't lethal, but it could blind and shock anything nearby for a few seconds. And a few seconds might be all he needed. He crouched lower, using the thick roots for cover as he inched closer to the clearing. The chanting of the tribe grew faster, the firelight flickering wildly against their scarred faces. The leader was still holding the knife high, the flames reflecting off its sharp edge. Ryan took a deep breath, counting in his head. 1, 2, 3. He flicked the switch on the flash charge and tossed it with perfect aim into the heart of the fire. It landed with a soft clink against the metal spit, rolling to a stop right under the girl. For half a second, nothing happened. Then, boom! A blinding white light exploded, brighter than lightning. The clearing was swallowed in it, and the sound was like a thunderclap. The tribal aliens roared in shock, stumbling back with their hands over their eyes. Some dropped their weapons, others crashed into each other in confusion. Ryan didn't wait. He broke from cover, sprinting into the open with his combat knife in hand. The girl's eyes widened as he reached her, and without a word, he sliced through the ropes binding her wrists and ankles. She collapsed forward, too weak to stand. Ryan caught her, pulling her close to shield her from the smoke and heat. The tribe was already recovering. The leader let out an angry bellow, his glowing eyes locking on Ryan. He swung his knife wildly, calling his warriors to attack. Ryan knew they had only moments before the clearing was full of charging enemies. He pulled the girl to her feet. "Can you run?" he whispered. She nodded weakly, though her legs trembled. He kept one arm around her, holding her up as they turned toward the dark jungle. A spear flew past Ryan's head, missing him by inches. Another slammed into the ground at his feet. The sound of the tribe's furious cries filled the air. Ryan fired 2 quick shots into the sky, the deafening noise making the aliens hesitate. It was enough. He pulled the girl into the trees, their footsteps pounding against the wet ground as they fled into the shadows. But the sound of pursuit was already behind them. The hunt had begun. Ryan pushed forward through the dense jungle, half carrying the alien girl as she stumbled beside him. The ground was slippery with wet leaves, and thick vines clung to his boots, slowing him down. Behind them, the furious roars of the tribe filled the night air. The girl's breathing was ragged, each step a struggle. Her silver skin was streaked with soot, and her hair clung to her face. Ryan kept his arm firmly around her, feeling how light and weak she was. A spear tore through the air and slammed into a tree just inches from Ryan's head. The wood shuddered, and he didn't need to look back to know more were coming. "Faster," he whispered, pulling her along. But he could hear the pounding of heavy feet getting closer. Branches whipped at his face as they crashed through the undergrowth. The jungle seemed to close in on them, the glowing plants casting eerie light over their path. Somewhere ahead, the sound of rushing water grew louder. Ryan's mind raced. A river could be their escape or a trap, but staying on land meant being caught. The girl stumbled again, and this time she nearly fell. Ryan tightened his grip and forced her to keep moving. The cries of the tribe were closer now, no more than 50 meters behind. He could hear their weapons clanging and their guttural language echoing through the trees. Suddenly, a warrior burst through the foliage to their right, blocking their path. He was huge, his skin covered in fresh scars, and he carried a long spear tipped with a jagged piece of black stone. Ryan didn't slow. He let go of the girl just long enough to raise his rifle. One precise shot cracked through the night, and the warrior collapsed with a grunt. "Move!" Ryan barked, grabbing the girl again and sprinting forward. They broke through a wall of thick ferns, and there it was, a wide, fast-flowing river, its surface reflecting the faint light of alien moons. The water was dark and cold, but Ryan didn't hesitate. The girl gasped, pulling back. "They will follow," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll follow no matter what," Ryan said, scanning the opposite bank. "But they won't be faster than the river." Behind them, more warriors were crashing through the jungle. Ryan looked into the girl's frightened eyes. "Trust me," he said. Without another word, he lifted her into his arms and stepped into the icy current. The shock of cold hit him like a punch, but he kept moving. The river was strong, pulling at his legs, but he pushed forward, holding the girl above the water. As they reached the middle, a furious howl rose from the bank they had just left. The tribe had arrived, their glowing eyes watching from the shadows. Some hurled spears, but the weapons splashed harmlessly into the water. Ryan fought the current step by step until they reached the far side. He climbed onto the muddy bank, both of them soaked and shivering. But the jungle ahead was silent again, too silent. Something else was out there. Ryan stood still for a moment, breathing hard, listening to the jungle. The roar of the river faded behind them, replaced by the soft hum of night insects. The girl clung to his arm, shivering from the cold water. "They won't cross," she whispered, glancing back toward the river. Her voice was weak but certain. "Let's not test that," Ryan replied, guiding her forward. His eyes kept scanning the shadows, alert for movement. They walked deeper into the forest, the moonlight barely touching the ground. After several minutes, the trees began to thin, and Ryan noticed shapes rising ahead. Tall, broken stone walls covered in thick vines. As they moved closer, he realized it was not a natural formation. These were ruins, old, ancient, and alien. Faded symbols glowed faintly on the stone, casting a soft blue light that made the air feel colder. The girl stopped, staring at the markings. "This place, it is from before my people were free," she murmured. Ryan glanced at her. "You've been here before?" She shook her head slowly. "No one comes here now. They say it is cursed." "Perfect," Ryan muttered. "Cursed means no visitors." They stepped inside the ruins, their footsteps echoing softly on the cracked stone floor. Broken columns rose around them, and the roof had long since collapsed, letting shafts of moonlight spill into the open space. The air smelled old, like dust and rainwater. Ryan led her toward a corner where part of the wall still stood. "We'll rest here for a moment," he said, setting her down gently. The girl sat, hugging her knees to her chest. "They will keep hunting," she said quietly. "They don't stop once they choose a prey." Ryan knelt beside her. "Then we stay ahead of them. Do you have a name?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Leora." "All right, Leora," Ryan said, checking his rifle. "I'll keep you safe, but I need to know why they wanted you. Why risk this much for one person?" Leora's silver eyes flickered in the dim light. "Because of what I am." She glanced toward the glowing symbols on the wall. "And because of what I can do." Ryan frowned, about to ask more, when a sound interrupted him, the faint crunch of stone under a footstep. He was instantly alert, his rifle raised. The sound came again, closer this time, from deeper within the ruins. The girl's expression changed from fear to something else, recognition. "They are not my hunters," she whispered. "This is something older." From the darkness ahead, a cold wind swept through the ruins, and the blue symbols on the walls suddenly flared brighter. Somewhere inside, gears rumbled, stone shifting like a door slowly opening. Ryan exchanged a glance with Leora. Whatever was waking in these ruins had been sleeping for a very long time, and now it knew they were here. The sound of shifting stone grew louder, echoing through the hollow ruins. Dust rained from the ceiling as a section of the wall slowly slid aside, revealing a dark passageway. The air that poured out was cold, dry, and heavy with the scent of something ancient. Ryan kept his rifle raised, stepping slightly in front of Leora. "Stay behind me," he murmured, but Leora didn't move back. Instead, her silver eyes locked onto the glowing symbols along the wall, and she reached out to touch them. The moment her fingertips brushed the stone, the symbols blazed brighter, as if they recognized her. The rumbling deepened, and the hidden passage lit up with the same blue glow. Strange markings along the floor pulsed in rhythm, guiding the light deeper inside. Ryan stared at her. "What did you just do?" Leora's voice was calm, almost sad. "This place was built by my ancestors, long before the tribes you saw tonight. It was a sanctuary and a weapon." Before Ryan could reply, she stepped into the passage. He hesitated for a moment, then followed, his boots scraping against the ancient stone. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, battles, ships in the sky, alien warriors holding strange devices. As they walked, the air grew warmer. The hallway opened into a vast underground chamber, and in the center stood a massive machine. It was shaped like a cross between a cannon and a tower, its surface covered in glowing veins of light. Leora approached it slowly, placing her hand on a round panel at its base. The entire structure came alive, humming with deep, resonant power. The floor trembled under their feet. Ryan took a step closer, his voice low. "What is that?" She looked over her shoulder at him. "The reason they want me. I am one of the few who can awaken it. To them, that makes me dangerous." The humming grew louder, the machine's upper section rotating slightly as beams of light swept across the chamber. Ryan could feel the heat from its core, like standing near the engine of a ship. "They will find us," Leora said, her voice steady now. "But this time we will not run." Ryan glanced back toward the dark tunnel they had come from. "So you plan to fight them with this thing?" Leora nodded. "It was built to protect my people. It will protect us now." Before Ryan could respond, a distant roar echoed from above. The tribesmen had found the outer ruins. Their heavy footsteps shook the ground as they began pouring in. Leora's hand tightened on the machine's control panel. The glow intensified, and a deep metallic voice filled the chamber, speaking in an ancient language Ryan couldn't understand. Whatever she had just activated, it was ready. The pounding footsteps of the tribesmen grew louder, echoing through the ancient halls. Their guttural war cries bounced off the stone walls, a sound that promised blood. Ryan moved to the edge of the chamber, rifle ready, eyes fixed on the entrance. "They're almost here," he said, glancing at Leora. She stood before the massive weapon, her hands resting on the glowing control panel. The light from the machine wrapped around her like a halo, making her silver skin shine. Her voice was calm but firm. "When they enter, don't fire. Let the weapon speak first." Ryan gave her a quick nod, though every instinct told him to start shooting the moment he saw an enemy face. The first warrior appeared in the doorway, spear raised high. His glowing eyes swept the chamber and locked on Ryan. But before he could shout, the weapon let out a deep, rising hum. The blue veins along its surface blazed like fire, and the front of the machine opened, revealing a core of swirling energy. In an instant, a beam of pure light shot forward, striking the stone floor just in front of the warrior. The impact sent him flying backward into the hallway, his weapon clattering to the ground. The rest of the tribesmen froze at the sight. For the first time, Ryan saw fear in their glowing eyes. Leora's voice rose, speaking in the same ancient language the machine had used before. The weapon responded, rotating toward the doorway. Another beam roared out, this one sweeping across the entrance and sending shards of stone and dust into the air. The tribesmen broke. Some dropped their weapons and fled, others scrambled back the way they had come. Their roars turned into screams as they vanished into the jungle. Ryan lowered his rifle, the adrenaline still pumping in his veins. That was effective. Leora stepped away from the panel, her body trembling slightly from the effort. This place was built to guard my people's future. Tonight, it guarded ours. Ryan walked over to her, scanning the empty doorway one last time before relaxing. They won't be back anytime soon. Not after what they saw. Leora looked up at him, her silver eyes softer now. You saved me when you didn't have to. I will not forget that. He gave a small smile. Guess we're even. You saved me too. Outside, the night was returning to silence. The jungle glowed faintly under the alien moons, and the ruins stood watch over the land as they had for centuries. Ryan knew they couldn't stay here forever, but for now they were safe. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered if their paths had crossed by chance or by destiny.